Cyber attacks are an undeniable component of business. Enterprise companies have the resources to put up good defense. What about SMBs and startups? For Tech Republicans EDNet, I'm Dan Patterson with Stephen Lilley of Mayor Brown's Cybersecurity and Data Practice. Stephen, thank you very much for your time today. I hear this all the time. I'm sure you hear this as well. My business is small, we're local or regional, or we're a startup, and we just don't have the resources to spend on cyber defense. How can companies that are small or just don't have a lot of extra cash still put up a good defense?
Sure, and thanks for the chance to talk to you about this important topic today. You're right, we hear this all the time. Big companies have compliance programs, they have massive security programs. For small and medium businesses and startups, this is not something that they can achieve, and there's not the money to go around to invest in such huge programs. But at the same time, the threats are real, and companies, unless they address cybersecurity in a reasonable way, could find themselves facing existential risks, both from a business perspective and from a litigation and liability perspective.
So I'm sure you hear this as well. I hear this all the time, but okay, I get it. I understand that I have to spend some money, but I just don't have the money. Or where should I spend the limited resources my company has?
Sure. So every company has a different profile. Some companies hold personal information. You think about a startup that's putting out some new app for healthcare information, for example, a fitness tracker or something like that. That company is obviously going to be very focused on protecting that personal information. Other companies may have some very new, exciting technology that they want to guard very closely. And I think the key takeaway for companies is to identify where the greatest risk is, and then identify what steps they can take, given their budget, to protect those risks, protect against those threats. And for companies in regulated industries particularly, so for example, a company that's in healthcare or a company that is handling personal information, they obviously want to be thinking as well about, what a regulator might think if there were to be some sort of compromise. And again, understood that small businesses don't have compliance programs. They don't have a huge department that's doing audits and, like a big enterprise company would. But if you can spend a little bit of time thinking about, who are the people, where are my legal risks going to be, and how do I generally guard against them? It can be fairly simple. It can be as simple as, if you're a really small business, don't email back and forth spreadsheets full of personal information. That's just not a good idea. And obviously, as you get bigger and bigger, your practices will mature. But there are some basic steps that you can take, and regulators like the FTC have made clear what those can be even for small businesses.
This may sound like a rhetorical question, but what type of threats do small businesses face? Are these the same as large enterprise companies and government organizations?
I think ultimately they are. I mean, they may be at a different scale, but the same general threats face all types of companies. So if you hold personal information, there is a risk that someone is going to try to steal that personal information and monetize it one way or another. If you have a trade secret, there is a threat that somebody is going to try to steal that trade secret and make some sort of commercial gain from it. And if you have any sort of system, there's a chance that someone could use a destructive attack against you, like a ransomware attack, and shut down your systems, and you'd lose access to them, and you have to pay money or through some other means to get access back to your systems. So, while if you're a massive Wall Street bank, your threat profile is going to be different, the basic types of threats that you face are going to be generally going to be the same.
So what can I do to mitigate cyber attacks or mitigate the risk of attacks happening to my company?
So if you're this very, very early stage startup, there are just some basic practices that you can use to protect against the basic threats. And those are frankly going to be the same as your personal computer hygiene. So you shouldn't be using you should be very careful about the email system you're using. There are a variety of free services where you can store documents in the cloud. Those are all good things to explore. As you get more and more mature as a company, you are going to want to start putting in place some sort of plans and policies. You're going to want to think about if something does go wrong, who am I going to call? and you're going to want to use probably some sort of managed service provider to protect your systems and your information, assuming that you're not going to build that capacity in-house.
Stephen Lilley, Mayor Brown, always good to talk to your team. As we look into the next year, 3 years, ransomware is an undeniable component of doing business. But what keeps you up? What cyber threats are bubbling under the surface that could impact particularly SMBs and startups over the next, say, 12, 18, 36 months?
I think there's a wave of new types of attacks that are coming that don't necessarily impact a company immediately, but can have really significant follow-on legal effects. So, for example, there are Bitcoin mining attacks now, where basically hackers are taking advantage of unsuspecting company systems to mine for Bitcoin. So they compromise your system and then they turn your system into a Bitcoin mining operation. That is something that doesn't necessarily, maybe your system may slow down, but when it turns out later that you've had some sort of criminal syndicate running on your systems and the FBI is knocking on your door, that's a very bad day. But it's sort of the next wave of attack. And similarly, I think you saw this already a little bit last year with the Mirai botnet. Devices being used to attack other systems, I think, is another sort of risk. And again, it's not something that a small business is going to think about. But if it turns out that your devices have been attacking some third party, again, that's going to be a very bad day when you find that out, and you have to start thinking through what obligations we have to these third parties we didn't even know we had any connection with.